You may not have known this, but next year could be a turning point for American law. In just 11 days, Supreme Court justices will reconvene to continue looking at a number of groundbreaking cases, including 3 that could change your daily life. On the docket, the constitutionality of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which many critics have dubbed Obamacare. There's Texas's legislative redistricting map and also illegal immigration reform. Joining me now is Carl Cecere, an appellate lawyer at the Dallas firm Hankinson, LLP. Thanks for being here, Carl.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Aside from the fact that these all could have a major impact on our lives, is there a thread that runs through all of these?
Yes, as a matter of fact, over the past couple of decades, Supreme Court cases have tended to focus on individual rights. Free speech, religion, discrimination, abortion, gay rights. These cases are all different than that and similar to each other in that they all focus on structural features of the Constitution involving federalism. That is, the relationship between the states and the federal government and the distribution of powers between the two of them.
Interesting. Well, let's break down these 3 cases one by one here. Let's talk about health care reform. First of all, what does it mean if the court strikes this down?
Well, this is a really important and difficult question. There's only 2 provisions of the Affordable Care Act that are on appeal: the individual mandate, the requirement that everyone buy insurance, and certain expansions in state Medicaid programs. But the Affordable Care Act is much larger than that. It involves basically every facet of medical care in the United States. And the big question of the case is, if one or both of those provisions go down as unconstitutional, does the remainder of the law remain in effect, or is it going to necessarily be struck down as well?
Now, what happens if the court upholds it?
Well, there's a schedule of implementation for the Affordable Care Act that goes for the next 10 years. Some provisions have already started to go into effect, and they'll kind of roll into effect gradually over time.
So the law will stand and those reforms will go forward?
That's correct.
All right. The Texas redistricting case, a lot of minority communities feel like they've not been adequately represented. Explain how this case could affect, I suppose, how Texas is represented on a national level, right?
I think that's certainly going to happen. What's at issue here is all of Texas's election maps, including the maps that it uses for determining who to send to the United States House of Representatives. And Texas is going to add 4 new seats as a result of changes in population. Our state has gotten much larger over the past decade. So the maps that we use will determine ultimately who gets elected, because draw the lines one way or the other, and it'll determine who gets to be, if it's going to be a Democrat or Republican in each seat. And there's also, the distribution of representatives for the Republican primaries, so it'll have an effect on who becomes president as well.
And talk about a hot button issue here, illegal immigration. Explain this case and what's at stake here.
Well, a lot of people have complained, including the Republican candidates for president, that the federal government hasn't done enough to combat illegal immigration. And some have suggested that states ought to pick up the mantle and do it themselves. This case is going to determine how far that states can go on their own in combating illegal immigration efforts, or whether that's a responsibility that's given exclusively to Congress.
A lot of really major constitutional questions here. They all seem to be coming up at once. Is this an especially busy time for the court on these kinds of questions?
This is a virtually unprecedented Supreme Court term. In terms of practical impact on people's individual lives, the chance to impact national elections, including the presidency, and just the sheer volume of really important constitutional work they're doing, there's really no analog.
Interesting time for you, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Carl Cecere, thanks so much for joining us and explaining all that to us. We appreciate it.